YouTube, what it do, man? It's your boy Benji. I'm back with another upload. I think we get into them things today. Again, I appreciate each and every one of y'all's support here and the Patreon. But of course, speaking of Patreon, I want to salute some of the guys. Shout out to Thomas and Noah. But of course, over there we are doing a lot of watching of TV shows, movies, and of course, a lot of wrestling. We are diving into the WWE Unreal and watching it raw and in full effect. Let's talk about what we're seeing. So this is season 2, episode 3. We start at WrestleMania 41, where Paul Heyman dumps everyone he's ever managed and then hugs Seth Rollins like he found his long lost son. Heyman says that Seth has been the best wrestler since 2012 and is finally entering his prime, which checks out because in the WWE, you only become main event ready once you turn 40. Triple H tells us that this heel turn was carefully planted, which is corporate slang for stop calling this random. The guys in Triple H talk about how you only get 30 seconds to steal a show, so enter PENTA, who immediately proves that if you have a cool mask, a catchphrase, and a banger theme, the WWE will push you. In his first match, the crowd loved him instantly. Backstage, everyone is amazed that PENTA is over, and Chelsea Green drops the line of the series. PENTA can make a broomstick look good. As a matter of fact, she had a match in Lucha Underground versus PENTA that plenty of people tout as a highlighting moment of her career, but she says she won't try to do that match again because you can't top perfection. So, no part 2. Chelsea then gives us an MTV Cribs episode at her unfinished dream home. It's just concrete and dreams, but she's already planning a gym and a trophy case. She's living her best life, and then she gets real about kids, money, and not wanting to mess up her momentum now that she's finally getting paid. Respect. And then SmackDown happens. A random episode, Chelsea Green loses the United States title to Zelina Vega. Chelsea Green had just started her presidential campaign routine. She was getting over with the crowd, and they just snatched the title from her. So Chelsea went to the back, and she was sad for a little bit. But then she remembered that wrestling is not real, and she gets to go home to her hot husband and future mansion. So she didn't really care too much. And then this is where the WWE began to tell on itself. I will say, for the majority of this season, it's actually structured really well, and it is really good as a documentary. I think that the first season did a lot more into trying to bring us into the world of kayfabe and tell us how they do this, how they do that. I think this season flowed a lot better, just being able to see things in the midst of some of the meetings, but we get to see some of these moments at a distance. We're not immersed in the entirety of it all, where we're just learning that everything is just not what it seems. I mean, we even found out that some of the biggest moments of the matches were CM Punk coming up with, the moment at the Elimination Chamber and stuff like that. I don't think we need to see that. But yeah, in a creative meeting, someone suggests putting the belt back on Chelsea Green. Triple H goes, okay, but who does she lose to? Translation, you're entertaining, but not one of our favorites. And that's the problem. Half of the women's roster disappears from TV unless they're holding a belt. The entirety of this conversation was about Chelsea Green continuing to hold the belt and feuding against the same people over and over again. Julia and Zelina Vega got 0 TV time as champions. This could be due to botches, though. I mean, they do highlight Zelina's botched 619 that broke Chelsea Green's nose. But I don't know why they were talking about Chelsea Green feuding against the same people because she has the championship. There are no stories with Chelsea Green with or without the belts. Again, Zelina Vega won the championship and then just immediately got taken off TV. They haven't had anything going on in the women's division, specifically in the mid-card division, for the entire year that they introduced the belt. Chelsea Green was doing the presidential campaign thing without the belt. She was working it on Twitter without the belt. These guys are acting like they don't have an entire NXT roster. Remember Candice LeRae, some of the women on Raw, Alexa Bliss, Charlotte Flair, Chelsea's cronies. Just say you don't care about the women's roster. I think it's also crazy that we see stuff like that happen because a big deal is made about roster cuts and budget cuts throughout the year. And a lot of that stuff is just about plans not being there for this character. Or potentially them being too old or whatever. Dude, watching this season has shown me that they don't have plans for much of anyone. We then speed up to the men's Money in the Bank match where Triple H loses his mind on LA Knight. They say that they created a ladder spot for him. For him. Even though Seth ended up winning the match. But I will say, LA Knight went off script for some reason and ended up deeper in the doghouse. This was a moment for Triple H to remind us that they can write a perfect show, but if things don't go according to plan, it's the wrestler's fault. So according to them, the spot in question was the end of the match. Seth Rollins was to climb the match. He was supposed to get maybe tugged or eventually accosted by LA Knight. But this was supposed to be because LA Knight was supposed to climb the ladder with him. So they're supposed to be on the opposing sides, staring at one another. Ooh, ay, to build the suspense in that match. Eventually, LA Knight was supposed to get his hands on the briefcase to have everybody believing that LA Knight was going to finally get his comeuppance. But Seth was going to cost him, curb stomp him, whatever, and win the match. What ended up happening was something kind of similar. At the end of the day, Seth climbed the ladder. The crew was backstage yelling at LA Knight because he was still laying on the ground. He tugged at Seth's feet. Seth kicked him off. He jumped down, stomped him, and then climbed back up the ladder and grabbed the briefcase. Y'all might be watching and being like, Benji, this wasn't really that much different. I don't think it was. But I can agree that there would have been a little bit more suspense built up into this moment, and that's what the writing team was after. They wanted the crowd to get up in the hopes that, again, LA Knight would win, even though this was his third Money in the Bank match that he lost. So in LA Knight's defense, I don't know why he would trust them when he hasn't gotten anything out of losing and they haven't done anything to build his character. But if he continually loses in order to eventually get a W, then they would have done him right. Like, there are plenty of people who have jumped into matches and hadn't won. Like, I think Chris Jericho, Kane, Kofi Kingston have been in plenty of Money in the Bank matches and didn't win. But supposedly, there was a plan. After they finished reprimanding LA Knight, we were going to see what the plan was. I do feel sorry for LA Knight because it was very obvious he was dejected at this moment, but maybe he just knew he messed up. And this is where we get to episode 4. Episode 4 opens with Paul Heyman reminiscing about ECW drama like it's a bedtime story, which tracks because he was writing the shows. In particular, this was about a feud between Tommy Dreamer and the Sandman, who got a cigarette pushed in his eye and whacked with the kendo stick. The story was that Sandman was blinded by this attack, and he was so dedicated to kayfabe that the Sandman did not leave his house for 5 weeks in order to sell the injury and avoid running into contact with anybody prior to his return. They brought this up in order to, I guess, parallel Seth Rollins' injury, but it was strange because these are not even in the same realm. A wrestler caused the Sandman injury, which built him up individually as a character, which showed us something about Tommy Dreamer, and this was a story that went on for weeks and weeks and weeks past this singular moment. But we're going to talk about that a little more down the line. I will say there was a good portion of the episode that was dedicated to Jelly Roll showing up, losing a ton of weight, and really just becoming the most wholesome part of the documentary. Now back to the negative Nancy stuff. The Seth Rollins injury ruse. A good portion of this segment of the show was Triple H getting an insider club of cool kids to know about the Seth Rollins injury angle, and he gets giddy about who can and cannot know. Like, he's listing all the people. multiple times. Oh, we can't tell him. We can tell him. We can't tell him. We can tell him. Eventually, they end up telling almost no one, not even the referee. There was even a back and forth about telling LA Knight about this, which, I mean, Triple H finally came to a sensus and eventually was able to get Seth Rollins to come to a sensus and say, no, that's not fair, because if you thought that you injured somebody, that would be sitting in your conscience. He did let Cody Rhodes know. That just goes to show you how much they like that guy. But what happened was, in the midst of the Saturday night's main event match, Seth Rollins did a moonsault, his knee buckled, LA Knight hit a BFT and won the match. I remember mentioning going into this match that it was a nonsensical match, because why were these guys battling if not for the title or if not for contender match? What was this for? And then this injury happened. So it was really confusing. But Triple H was happy because the fans got worked. But hindsight is everything. Who did this help? Upon returning from the injury, Seth Rollins didn't need the ruse. He could have easily just went backstage, cashed in. Just whenever. Like, that's the beauty of the Money in the Bank briefcase. You can hide out, chill until the most opportune moment. You had a year to do this. In addition, let's say he was legitimately hurt. Why couldn't you have him cash in, win the title, and be like, I'm hurt. I'm not challenging anybody for this belt. I'm just going to hold it while I'm hurt. It is what it is. That was the whole story that they were trying to have John Cena run. But yeah, I mean, in kayfabe and in reality, I didn't understand the purpose of him getting hurt to manipulate everybody. Maybe the only argument you can make is that since he was out of mind, he was out of sight as well, that people wouldn't be worried about him. I don't know. LA Knight ended up going nowhere after this and got taken off TV. Again, like I mentioned, the original injury match wasn't a contenders match. It wasn't for a title. LA Knight just kind of waited around in the water, just got beat up by the Vision week after week, and eventually, again, got taken off TV. The CM Punk and Seth Rollins feud just pretty much died, and then Jey Uso got sent to tag team jail. So I'm just confused as to what the purpose of this was. Why was LA Knight in the match? I mean, people online were like, okay, maybe this means something for LA Knight moving forwards. It meant nothing for him. Nothing happened. And the next negative thing I think that happens is, since the fans were worked because we just assumed that Seth Rollins was injured, they became insensitive when he was actually hurt because nobody wanted to get worked again. And again, we all watch wrestling under the premise that they're bending reality, right? But nobody wants to see somebody actually get hurt. So it's different if you do it in the context of a wrestler attacking a wrestler and then injuring him. So that wrestler can then say, I took you out already, I can take you out again. When these guys say, I'm going to injure you, I'm going to put you in the dirt, and then they injure somebody, it's like, wow, he did his stuff. And now the triumphant return is a little bit more impactful for the face or for the heel or whoever. But it's not like the crowd got worked here. They just didn't want to see somebody get hurt. That was potentially in a major storyline. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all humans. Nobody wanted to see this guy getting injured. That's not even creative. That was the strangest thing about this episode. In majority of the season, they're building up to this point as if they did some great writing. All you did was just say, let's have somebody fake get injured. We've seen enough injuries on TV to just be like, okay, somebody got hurt. But now people are questioning some of the injuries of these wrestlers because of this moment. I'm probably going to have to expand upon this more in episode 5 review. But at least at the end of this episode, they ended off with a nice note because it was kind of a rundown of them bringing back Women's Evolution, which did rule, I will say. That was one of my favorite WWE pay-per-view, premium live events of last year. I don't know. This episode absolutely stressed me out. I don't know what is going on right now. But we at least have one more episode to review and watch. So please, bear with me. Because on one more carefully planted explanation away from losing my mind.